Hi, I'm Tracy Devet from tracydevet.com. And in this video, I just want to explain how I do things differently. So I am a registered certified clinical hypnotherapist. I also have some years of psychology studies behind me and also some counseling. Now, years ago, I would wonder why, when I counsel people, why the problem never actually seemed to go away. They'd seem to get better and feel better straight after the session or even during the session, because it's got a cathartic effect when you're actually speaking about your problem and unburdening yourself. But they'd come back with the same problem again and again, maybe in different forms, in different guises. But it always frustrated me that it never seemed to be a permanent help or long-standing help. It was just for the moment, make them feel better. It's like putting a sticking plaster on a cut, and then they come back a week or a month or even a year later, and that cut's never healed. So I put it aside for a few years. I am very much a intellectual person, so I was always studying and updating my knowledge on the side, because I have a huge passion and interest in psychology, the study of human behavior, the science of human behavior, and even more, what can help people who are struggling with all sorts of issues. That's my passion, and that's been my lifelong goal to help people. But it wasn't until I came across hypnotherapy, not just hypnotism, but hypnotherapy. So that's using hypnotic techniques, but in a therapeutic context. So you're not just going to put somebody into a trance and then ask them to jump around like a chicken or act like they're drunk or anything. We don't do any of that, but we can use that hypnotic trance techniques to access people's subconscious minds. And when they access their subconscious minds, that's where deep changes can begin, because that's where all of these behaviors, the reason for these behaviors, the root cause of these behaviors, and why they are perpetuated are all stored in these deep subconscious realms. Because if you could change it with your cognitive mind, just thinking about it, we would be able to just wake up every day and go, right, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to act like this. I'm not going to worry about that. But unfortunately, that doesn't work. It's not that easy, because we're thinking about it with our conscious minds. It's in the deeply stored areas of the brain. And as more research is getting done, more and more of this is coming to light, where it used to be sort of a bit airy-fairy and a bit like woo-woo. Now they're starting to have these scientific experiments. They can actually see the brain working on a screen where it's more active, which areas are being activated as they are doing brain surgery and stuff like that. And all of this is helping to make us better therapists. But getting back to hypnotherapy, the wonderful thing about it, and the first time in my life that I realized we could actually make lasting change to people. Phobias and fears can literally be gone in one session. Lifelong anxiety may take some more sessions, and depending how quickly the person wants to let it go, because it depends on the person's intentions more than anything else, or how quickly they want to let these things go and how easy it is for them to let them go, and how much they want a positive result. And this is not just positive thinking, by the way. It's far more subtle and technical than that. But we can make lasting change. We can have people who've had anxiety their whole lives, have had that critical inner voice telling them to behave in certain ways. Their whole life has grown up and developed because of that. And they get set free from it. And suddenly their confidence comes back, the confidence that we were all born with. Their curiosity for life and living comes back, that we were all born with. That zest for life that we were all born with, we can restore that. when it's been squashed and sidelined over time by learning. And it's just learned behaviors that we've stacked one on top of the other, and they get squashed together and they get muddled up and they get entwined, so that consciously we don't actually understand how this has happened. We might have a vague recollection of, yeah, I've got a spider phobia, and I do remember being scared of a particular huge big spider that came into my bedroom or was running across the bed or something like that. But that's only superficial knowledge. That might not actually be it. It might be something else completely. And it's just that fear has just manifested itself in that spider. And the wonderful thing about hypnotherapy is that you don't even have to go into massive detail when you're dealing with a hypnotherapist. There is some information that we need to know. And that's why you would always get a questionnaire to fill in so that we know what we're dealing with, and start thinking about how we're going to help you before you actually have your session. But you don't have to go into gory details. And this is really great for somebody who's suffering from trauma. The trauma might be so traumatic that it's very, very difficult and distressing to actually talk about it. And that's going back to counseling and talking therapies. Talking about it is not going to help release it in a way that it's going to have a lasting effect. In fact, PTSD or PTS, post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSS, those things, they can take a while to unlock and to undo those knots, but it can be done. It can be done in a very controlled and a very safe and a very successful way. So I am a huge fan of hypnotherapy. I see it working nearly every day. I see my clients getting incredible results. And even before that, I know the massive difference that it made to my life, or else I wouldn't be doing it. So I got over my anxiety. I got over my perfectionism, which I realized was rooted in anxiety. And the great thing about perfectionism is you do a job well. The bad thing about perfection is it makes you into a procrastinator, because if the job's not going to be perfect, you think about it too long, and you eventually don't do it, and somebody else picks that up and runs with it, and you're left standing, left behind, and you haven't done as well as you could have. So I've been able to kick perfectionism to the curb. I won't say it's not a good idea to get rid of it completely, because obviously you want to make a good job about what you do, but that anxiety about doing a job perfectly well or getting tied up in knots if you're not doing it, that's all gone, and that's great. The other thing was I had a huge spider phobia. I was arachnophobic to the nth degree, whereas if there was a spider of a certain size in a building, I couldn't go in. I used to have a shop. I used to have an interior decorator shop. And I remember one day there was 2 large spiders in there, and I literally ran out the premises and had to leave the customers to help themselves and sort themselves out, because I couldn't go back in until these spiders had been caught and taken out. I mean, I'm laughing about it now because it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it is a true story. I've also spent nights stuck in the kitchen because there's been a big spider on the stairs between the kitchen and the rest of the house. And nobody was waking up to help me, so I spent the night on top of the kitchen cupboards. I've also spent the night in the lounge with tea towels stuffed underneath the doors, just in case the spider in question decided to run across the floor and come underneath the door. And I spent the night on the couch in the lounge on more than one occasion. If that's not ridiculous, arachnophobia, I don't know what is, but that used to be my life. And now I'm so thankful. I could even have, and I have had, somebody's pet tarantula on my hand. And in the past, I couldn't even see it in a box. When I studied biology at school, we had big spiders that were encased in resin, so that we could look at them close up and see all their little body parts. I couldn't pick it up. I couldn't pick it up and look at it. I could look at black and white pictures, and that's how I learned about the spider. But I could not look. I couldn't physically pick up these resins that had these encased spiders in, because they were just, well, there were real spiders, weren't they? And they were just triggering this massive anxiety attack or panic attack, where I'd have to stop myself from actually wanting to run out the class. So hypnotherapy is effective for so many things. It's so much more effective than most other things that you've tried. You might have tried counseling. You might have even tried CBT. Now, CBT seems to be the latest thing, and that's cognitive behavioral therapy. So you talk about your problem, and then you get asked to think about the problem and think how it's affecting you, how it's affecting your behavior, and how you could do things differently. And then you go and practice doing the things differently. And it seems good at the time, but it's still not eliminating the reason why that's happening in the first place. Whereas under hypnosis and various other techniques that we have at our disposal, if we've learned them, of course. And as I say, I'm one of those people that never stops learning. So I'm always investigating these things and updating my knowledge. But we actually get to the root cause of the problem. And when it gets released there, it has a ripple effect through your whole life and the way you behave. Because once you start sorting out the deep issues, you'll find that the ripple effect, things will change, which you'd never even suspected were related. So I hope you've gained a little bit more about the benefits and the sort of ins and outs, and why I am such a fan of hypnotherapy and other techniques. When I'm talking about other techniques, there are ones that are based on EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization therapy. There are also ones based on NLP, which have a physical component to them. They're not just talking or not just thinking. They actually have certain physical exercises and movements that help you release trauma, release anxiety, release stress and worry. And yeah, just absolutely brilliant techniques. So I have about probably 5 or 6 at my disposal. And yeah, whatever the customer needs or the client needs, we have this wonderful box of techniques that we can choose from and use to best effect. This has been Tracy DeVette from tracydevette.com. Thank you for listening, as always. And if you'd like to know more, please get in touch. I love speaking to people. Helping people is my life's mission. And yes, I'm always happy to answer questions. Have a great day.